name is Andrew M. Strode. I'm a civil rights attorney and a managing partner of Action Injury Law Group. We are a Chicago-based civil rights firm, and we represent dozens of families across the country who have lost loved ones to unjustified police violence. I'm also joined here today by my co-counsel partner, Rick Bailey. In addition, we're here with the family of Dominique White, his mother, Teresa, his stepmother, Molly, his father, Kelly, and the rest of his family, including his brothers and sisters. Last night, the family of Dominique White filed a federal Section 1983 civil rights lawsuit against the City of Topeka, the Topeka Police Department, and the two officers who unjustifiably and unconstitutionally shot and killed Dominique White. On September 28, 2017, 9 months to today, at approximately 9:20 a.m., Dominique White was in Ripley Park sitting at a picnic table with his girlfriend. Within minutes, two officers drove their car onto the park. After an initial brief encounter with Dominique, the two officers, Justin Mackey and Michael Cruz, without cause or justification, shot Dominique 3 times in the back. Let me say that again. Shot Dominique 3 times in the back. Dominique presented no threat to the officers. This community in Topeka is outraged. The video speaks for itself. There's a narrative in America right now where young black men are shot and unjustifiably killed. And unfortunately, it's another situation that's happened here. You think of Walter Scott, you think of Stephen Clark, you think of Antoine Rose in Pittsburgh, as well as the other family we represent in Wichita, the family of Andy Finch, who was tragically killed in a swatting incident. But on September 28, 2018, at that moment here in Topeka, everything changed for the family of Dominique White. Within that moment, Kelly lost his son. Within that moment, Teresa lost her son. Within that moment, Molly lost her stepson. Within that moment, 4 beautiful young boys lost their father. Tyrell, James, Jackson, and Nicholas no longer have their father because of the unjustified use of force by an officer who has a history in Topeka and a history that the leadership in Topeka and the police department was well aware of. The family lost the light of their lives. When you talk to the family, they talk about his laughter and his smiles and watching movies and playing video games, and they talk about how Dominique loved his 4 children more than anything. The family is here today. Black Lives Matter is here today. We have people from the faith and the community activists here supporting. What does the family want? The family is pursuing justice and holding the City of Topeka responsible for the tragic death of Dominique White. With that, we're going to turn it over to Teresa, the mother of Dominique White, to talk about her son.
Ago today, I received the most gut-wrenching, horrifying phone call a mother could ever receive. His girlfriend called, and I had to stay calm to hear her, to understand what she was saying. That my son was shot. My son was shot. She didn't know where they were taking him. They placed him in the ambulance. That's all she knew. And in no way was I prepared to hear he was shot by the police, Topeka police, who are supposed to serve and protect us. Dominique was the funniest guy you could ever know. He had the sharpest wit and could always make you smile, no matter what mood you were in. He had a way of talking to people in any situation and helping them through whatever they were going through. I'm not sure why he wasn't able to help himself that way through his struggles. He had this open mind that I wish all of us had. He could talk to anyone about anything. It didn't matter their race. They were male or female, gay, straight, what religion. He could talk to everyone, and he loved them all. He never judged anyone. He didn't have any prejudice that I knew of. He was a protector of anyone he loved, especially the women in his life. He told me not long before he was murdered that it was his job to always be there and protect his 4 sisters. He hadn't been there for them lately like he thought he should be, but he was going to fix that. Dominique had 2 lifetime best friends, his older brothers. They grew up side by side. The awesome threesome is what my brothers and my family called them. Growing up, they didn't have too many outside friends. It was always just the 3 of them, always together and never apart. Brotherly love at its finest. He left behind 4 beautiful boys. 2 of them are a little bit older, 14 and 11, and they have some great memories that they can hold on to Dominique with. But the 2 little guys, 4 and 6, are too young. And they'll only be able to hold on to him by the stories that we tell them. He was a spitting image of his father. You didn't have to know them both. If you knew one, and you saw that one, and you listened to him for just a few seconds, you would say to yourself, oh, that's Dominique's dad, or oh, that's Kelly's son. And now he's gone. He didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve this. And his sons most definitely did not deserve to have to spend the rest of their life without their father. Thank you.
This is Molly, Dominique's stepmother.
Hi. I would just like to thank everybody for coming out today and supporting our family. This has been unexplainable. We didn't ask to be placed into this group. We didn't ask to be here today having to do this. We'd much rather have Dominique back. I just want to say that on behalf of the family, Dominique's murder was referred to as an incident in September by Chief Cochran. And we're here today to say that his murder is not an incident that happened. It's a tragedy. Thank you for coming out.
My name's Justice. I'm one of Dominique's younger sisters. I just wanted to say that he was a really good person, and I honestly never seen my brother have a bad day. He was really funny. He was smart. Anything you asked him, he probably knew the answer. He would help you find it out. Anytime anybody needed help, he would always help them. He would never turn you down, even if he didn't have it himself. And people might think what he did was wrong or that he shouldn't have ran, but nobody knew what was going through his mind except for him, and nobody knew what he was thinking. And honestly, it just wasn't right. No police shooting is right. Nobody being killed is right. And no matter what he was doing in the park that day, no matter what happened, he didn't deserve that, and he especially didn't deserve it by 2 Topeka police officers who thought that it was their right or that it was their choice to take his life because they felt threatened. I'm pretty sure people feel threatened every day, and none of us think to shoot or kill the person who was threatening us. When he got out this last time, just like my mom said, he said that he was going to be here for us because he hasn't been here in the past couple years that he's been in and out. But I would probably say this last time he got out was the closest and most time that we've ever spent together, and I learned so much from him. And nobody's perfect at all, and it's messed up that we have to go through this. because they thought that it was okay, or they thought that he was pulling for a gun, which doesn't even make sense. And that's really all I wanted to say. He was a really good dude. He was funny. He loved music. He always wanted to see his kids no matter what. Even if it was just to take him to the park or take him to McDonald's or take him to get pizza. He loved pizza. Even if it was hot or cold, it didn't matter. But that's all. I just love my brother, and I hope that they do the right thing.
Now we're going to have Pastor Sarah Oglesby Dunnigan with the Unitarian Universal Fellowship. Pastor Sarah.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Oglesby Dunnigan. I'm a minister here in Topeka. I wanted to share with you my deepest concern that came out of the murder of Dominique White and the district attorney's subsequent ruling that officers were not at fault, which is the way in which this determination allows officers to see themselves as representing all aspects of our criminal justice system instead of just the first step in the system. Maybe you remember the movie Judge Dredd from 1995, which took a comic book character and portrayed a dystopian view of our future where armed police invoke the entire criminal justice system themselves, arresting, judging, and sentencing all at once, often at the cost of life and the freedom of the individual approached. Friends, I want to be clear. Some of us are already living in this reality. Dominique White is just one among thousands who prove that zip code and skin color define the fault lines in our communities, that we do not in fact experience the same community. Police officers are not hired to investigate, arrest, judge, and sentence people. The goal of an officer should be a clean, safe arrest with clear charges. The rest is done by a judge and jury with attorneys. In the Dominique White case, there is no clear connection between the person who was killed and a crime that was committed. Dominique was sentenced to death for running away from police officers. I want to send a clear message to our officers. We expect our officers to do their part and their part alone in this process. We've seen in other news in Wichita and Greater Kansas City the need for officers to fully evaluate a situation before using any kind of force, especially lethal. If we are to say we value human life, we need to have a better way to detain people that we are investigating and to ascertain the threat they present to the public. We need to know that in Topeka, our functions of government are each doing their own part to continue to and do not use policing to define race and citizenship. This police department does not have a public relations problem as they have asserted. When you can acknowledge that there is not a monolithic experience of Topeka or the Topeka Police Department and move beyond trying to fix your image to trying to change the culture and practices within your department to address the disparities, then change can come.
Next, we're going to have Trinity Carpenter with Sisters with a Purpose.
Hello, I'm Trinity Carpenter. I represent SWAP and also Black Lives Matter. And I want to also be clear that the murder of Dominique White could have been prevented. Dominique White's fear of the police should have never warranted his murder. And the subsequent investigation lacked transparency and accountability. That is unacceptable. The state of Kansas has shown that state-sanctioned murder and violence is a theme and a trend. Dominique White's murder definitely represents this. I can still remember the first vigil I attended. I can still remember the grief on his family's face. I can remember watching his sister fall to her knees in despair. And I also can tell you that that grief has not went away because of how the City of Topeka, the District Attorney's Office, and the Topeka Police Department has handled this investigation. This family deserves criminal justice, and that is not going to be given to them. And so this is the avenue they have, and hopefully maybe his children will be afforded opportunities that will not be given by the support of their father. But what I will say is that Dominique White's family deserved more. They believed in the system, and now they don't. And for a person like me to see someone that thought that the world worked right and then be told that justice could not be afforded to them because their son did not fit the mold that people thought should be valued is unacceptable. And so I stand here today, and I hope everyone hears very clearly that Black lives do matter, and that families' grief should be compensated when they stand and watch injustice like this transpire all across the nation, let alone in Kansas repeatedly in recent time. And with that, that's all I have to say.
Next, I'd like community activist PJ Carter. PJ.
I'm here speaking on behalf of Topeka. As far as the community needs to feel like these officers are here to protect and serve them. We need to feel like running is not a justification for death. We need to feel like that these steps that we're taking to bridge the gap between the city and the community aren't just a band-aid to just brush this under the rug. We need to feel like we're safe, because I'm the same age as Dominique. I hang out at the same places, the same time as Dominique does. I very well could have been Dominique. And we just need to know that this is not acceptable, not only to us, but to the community. Because I mean, fight or flight is a human instinct. To run is to say that you're in fear, not to be saying or implying that you are a threat. So to be in fear justifies murder, then I mean, what kind of community are we living in? That's all I got for that.
Our final speaker is going to be Aaron Brashear with Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. My name is Aaron. I'm a community organizer and justice advocate with Black Lives Matter. I have a few prepared words. I want to thank the White family and the Action Injury Law Group for the opportunity to speak a few words that will hopefully provide some context to this issue. First, let me tell you what this is not about. This is not about being anti-law enforcement. We all understand how difficult and dangerous law enforcement can be. We appreciate the sacrifices law enforcement officers make in the line of duty. We applaud officers that perform their duty professionally and compassionately, particularly those among the nearly 85% that have witnessed the excessive use of force by their fellow officers and decide to intervene, de-escalate, and prioritize civil liberty over state-sanctioned harassment or oppression. This is not about being anti-Second Amendment. We support the constitutionally granted right of the American citizenry to keep and bear arms in the interest of protecting themselves from anyone that would infringe on their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. In this age of increased violence perpetuated against Black, brown, Native, queer, trans, gender nonconforming, Jewish, Muslim, and other marginalized identities, violence that also, by the way, disproportionately affects women within each of those demographics. We would argue that, in fact, the Second Amendment applies to those groups in particular. This is not a partisan issue. To politicize the loss of life, reducing it to a liberal, conservative, Democratic, or Republican issue is a special kind of injustice within itself, and we would encourage anyone doing so to reevaluate their viewpoint and reframe their arguments. We must value our collective humanity above all political opinions. And finally, this is not race baiting. Most Americans still believe that all races, colors, and cultures deserve safety and opportunity in this country. The only people that disagree with that are racists, Nazis, fascists, xenophobes, you know, the kind of people that our grandparents fought and often died defending our country against. But to deny the data, to ignore the conclusive numbers pertaining to police violence in this country, is to willfully submit to complacent ignorance, or worse, to join a herd being led by uneducated racial separatists. These separatists say things like police shootings kill more white people than black people in America, which is actually true, but only if you're looking at absolute numbers. A closer look at the numbers, however, exposes an unquestionable and deadly imbalance, because it is also verifiably true that when people that identify as white make up over 62% of the population, and people that identify as black make up only 13% of the population, even a basic understanding of arithmetic reveals the fact that black people are almost 4 times more likely to be killed by police in America. So what is this about then? This is about 3 things: fear, power, and justice. It's about fear because as a result of racism, revisionist history, and structural oppression, the black man remains the most feared person in America. White supremacists in this country have successfully and historically weaponized a fabricated fear against their fellow white populace, which includes many law enforcement officers, leading them to believe that black folks are inherently more violent or more aggressive than other racial groups. A lie that spits in the face of patriotism and poisons the well of liberty. Consequently, in the eyes of anyone unfortunate enough to drink from that poisoned well, black folks are halfway to being criminals simply because of our color, simply because we exist. And we've been suffering the repercussions of that manufactured sickness for centuries. It's about power, because the actions of those 2 officers on this day in September last year point to an insidious power imbalance that this country must reckon with. If we are unable to acknowledge the reality of black trauma at the hands of the state and accept the inextricable link between that trauma and the abuse of power in the structure that causes it, we have no hope of ever making America great. In a country that prides itself on the rule of law, disagreeing with the police, arguing with the police, struggling with the police, ignoring the police, or even carrying a firearm, especially in an open carry state such as Kansas, does not form the basis for a public execution. And above all, it's about justice. Justice for this family. Above all, it's about justice. Justice for this family that has experienced more than most of us can imagine. Justice out of respect for Dominique's life and his memory. Justice is about submitting to what is morally right, even when it's the most difficult. Without accountability for the act of violence that needlessly took this young man's life, there can be no justice. Achieving justice in this case amounts to nothing less than an act of love and righteousness, concepts that all of us, from faith leaders to politicians to educators to farmers, should aspire to every day. I want to leave everyone hearing and watching this with one simple question. What threat does a fleeing man pose? Thank you for your time. Power to the people.
We'll take a few questions, and then we're going to wrap up the conference.
What is your overall goal with this lawsuit?
Like the young brother just said, we're fighting for justice. We're fighting for reform. 4 young boys lost their father because of the unconstitutional and unjustified actions of those officers. So we want the police officers held accountable, we want the City of Topeka held accountable, and we want this police department to change.
What could Chief Cochran do going forward that could help rectify it?
I think he needs to address this. This is an officer that was on the force that had a history and pattern of violence. They knew about his background and his prior behaviors, and that's unacceptable. How can an officer shoot and kill someone unjustifiably? As Mr. Brashear just said, we've looked at hundreds of police shooting cases across the country. The video speaks for itself. Dominique was running away. And so the police chief and the mayor and the city manager need to take responsibility for this. It's not just about a lawsuit, it's about fundamental reform.
And with the DA disagreeing, do you think that speaks for
Well, we fundamentally disagree with the DA's opinion. If you look at the shooting cases across the country, state's attorneys and district attorneys have consistently not filed criminal charges. Thank God recently with the recent case in Pittsburgh, they did file criminal charges swiftly against that officer. So we're not surprised by the DA's decision. Beyond the reasonable doubt is a high standard. What the family is doing now is leveraging federal litigation and the Section 1983 lawsuit to pursue justice in the civil context.
You say the Section 1983. What does that statute say?
You should read the statute. It's a constitutional violation. Someone's right under the color of law. Okay, thank you very much. No, wait, sorry.
One thing to say. In our meeting with the DA said in that meeting, he did not believe Dominique posed a threat and that he believed Dominique was running away for his life. And we could use that if we wanted to. He said that to the family in a meeting. Then stepped right outside the door and called it justified. You got two different heads on that snake.
All right, thank you very much.
Chief Cochran can say Dominique's name.
Kelly.
Can say his name, not just the incidents.